Hi, it's Peggy at Headshots by Peggy, and today we have Kevin McCorkle with us, and we are going to have a blast.
I hope. Pressure. All of a sudden pressure.
Lots of pressure. Lots of pressure.
I'll try to make it a blast.
I mean...
Hopefully it'll be useful, at least, if not a blast.
You are a wealth of information. I'm sure you're going to give us a ton of good stuff.
Well, I hope so.
So you're a big shot at SAG.
Oh, no. Well, I do a lot of volunteer work at SAG.
Yeah.
I do a lot of volunteer work at SAG. I joined SAG back in 1982. I got upgraded on a film called Kenny Rogers. Called Six Pack with Kenny Rogers. If you want to see 22-year-old me with a head full of hair saying my first line in a film, then just do the Netflix thing or whatever. And
yeah. That was your
Six
first.
Pack. That was my very first experience.
line.
I was working as an extra, and I'd been working for days and days and days. A good friend of mine at the time booked a lead. His name's Robbie Still. Shout out to Robbie. He was a lead character in the film. And he said in his twangy voice, I'll try to do it justice, Robbie, "Hey, Kevin, why don't you come on down here and do some extra work on this film? Because there's lots of fun and we're having a blast and I'd love to, just hang out with you." And I was down there like that.
So this is your first acting job?
First movie acting job, yeah. And let's see, it was Kenny Rogers, Aaron Gray, Barry Corbin, and Anthony Michael Hall, Diane Lane. I mean, it was a host of up-and-coming and established actors. So I was like a pig in a poke.
That's pretty cool.
And they needed someone to say a line to introduce the character Turk Logan in the film, and I was the guy to do that. So that was my first line. I ran down to SAG. It was just SAG then, not SAGAFTRA. I ran down and paid I think it was $300 to join then.
Oh, wow.
And,
that's nice.
And then
it's
I've just been...
It's not $300 to join now.
I know, it's a little more expensive, but it's well worth it.
Yeah.
It's well worth it.
Yeah.
And I've just been rocking and rolling ever since. I did a couple of other small roles in big films and a couple of sort of regional local commercials, but then I moved right to New York. I'd met a bunch of actors on different films that shot in Atlanta, independent films. And they said, "Come on up to New York. New York's the place to be. Don't go out to L.A." So I started in New York, and just I love New York. I love New York. Too expensive though.
There.
A little expensive.
And it snows there.
And it snows.
Really
There's
anti-snow.
one of the things I love about New York. Is that you get on a subway, and you're not surrounded by the ecosystem of acting. You're surrounded by Wall Street attorney is here. And fashion photographers there, and the homeless person is there, and you're all kind of face to face and talking. Yeah. And I loved New York. Yeah. But I was only there till '85. I came out here for pilot season in '85, and I had everybody move my stuff out. I just had it shipped out. Yeah. And I've been here since.
Wow.
1985.
1985.
Yeah, I teach down at USC, and most of my students were born well after 1985, so I'm starting to feel it a little bit, starting to feel the age.
I taught a headshot workshop a couple of weeks ago, and the guy that introduced me said, "She's been a professional photographer since before most of you were born," and I was like...
It's a blessing.
I don't think that was the way. I don't think that's the way you should have introduced me. It's like... All right, I'm going to remember this. I got a kick out of that.
So true. But time marches on.
Exactly.
And for me, I want to make the best of it. I mean, I figure I just turned 60, so I got 20, maybe 30 more years, and then I'm pushing up the daisies. Yeah. So I want to really make the most of this time. Make the most of this time, yeah. And I've done hundreds of commercials and been on all sorts of TV shows and films, big movies, little movies. But in many ways, I feel like I'm still in the beginning processes. I'm still learning. Every job I do, I learn an important lesson. Every class I teach, I turn an important lesson. And for those of you out there who are starting your careers or rebooting your careers, I would say approach it with that attitude, that you can always learn something new. And even the newest of actors, when I'm teaching, like at USC, a lot of these kids, you know, they haven't really started their professional career yet. They teach me. They inspire me. So
that's what I like about teaching, is you learn so much when you teach.
Yeah, all the time, you know. And the thing is, especially with this crazy career that a lot of us have chosen, this entertainment career, it's just evolving exponentially.
Well, things are changing so much. I mean, in my profession, I mean, it's nothing like it was 20 years ago. Nothing, because once digital hit, and it did the same thing for the film industry.
Absolutely.
I mean, now people can literally shoot a movie on their iPhone. I mean, that's
isn't
it
interesting? Isn't it interesting that the people who are entrenched in film, and guys, I love film. I love shooting on film. When any chance I get, I love it. I'm not poo-pooing that at all. But the people who were entrenched in film, they scoffed at the digital age. They said nothing will ever replace film.
No.
And guess what? It's
did.
rare now
Yeah.
when you get to step on a set and there's an actual film camera filming you. 99% of the time, maybe 95% of the time, it's digital.
I was lucky because I went film a little before most photographers. I mean, digital before most photographers did. And all my colleagues were, they said I was crazy, I was an idiot, I was going to lose my business. And then, you know, 6 years later, when everybody was going digital, they didn't know how to do the software. They didn't know how to keep up.
Right.
And a lot of them, you know, quit. They just went and, you know, flipped burgers
Well,
or whatever because
that's
they just
the crazy
they couldn't adapt.
Yeah, I think that's the crazy thing. It's like, you know, I respect this new generation in many, many ways, and I learn in many ways, right? Because, you know, when I like to jokingly say I'm a child of the 50s and an actor baby from the 80s, right? So think of all the exponential changes that have happened from the 50s, but even also from the 80s when I first started my career. And there
back
are people.
Then you had 8x10 headshots.
Oh, totally, black and white, black and white, and
and
you'd go shuffle them around and throw them under doors, and breakdown services would deliver the breakdowns to the agent, and they would fax you 3 days in advance for your commercial audition.
Google what a fax is.
Yeah, exactly. Many of you don't know what a fax is, but it's an incredible change, and like I think there's a blessing and a curse to all of that. You know, the blessing of all these new distribution mediums and technological mediums to be able to shoot in is that there's a ton of stuff out there. The curse is there's a ton of stuff out there, and some of it is going to be less than great. But where we're not maybe making the same large amounts of money on a few projects, we're able to work more and hopefully still make a living.
Right.
You know, and that's why I try to keep it in the union situation, because that non-union stuff can get so exploitive. You know, it's good training ground, I think, but you know, the kind of training ground that you have for the stuff that you shoot yourself is going to be your workout, right? That's not going to be ready for prime time. But the stuff that's ready for prime time, we're not going to be paid as much as we used to.
Yeah, it's a different and just within the last 2 years, there's been a lot of different things happening with the pay.
The pay scale has changed dramatically, and again, you know, the blessing is there's a ton of work out there, a ton of platforms to distribute on, but the curse is that there's economies of shooting now. And whereas before, and you know, I'll just talk about the commercial world right now. If they're shooting, say, for an internet spot, the budget for their talent could be 10 times the budget of the whole thing. Whereas with traditional media, when it's just shot for television, we're about 2%. We're about 2% of the budget.
Right.
So we started this group, Union Working. I got my trucker hat, knock on wood, and basically what we're doing right now is trying to find a nice medium in between there where we're getting paid a living, workable wage, and the employers don't feel taken advantage of, but it's not this crazy town stuff that's going on. You know, big Fortune 500 companies are wanting to pay $500, buyouts for in perpetuity, and it just, it's like anything else. The pendulum swings back and forth, and we're hoping to find that medium,
because they're like, oh, well, we don't know how many people saw it on the internet. Really, everybody saw it on the internet.
Right. Yeah. But there's, I think there's sort of myths and things that go. I think one of the myths that we feel as an actor who does a lot of commercials. I don't like to say commercial actor because I work in every field.
Right.
But an actor who does a lot of commercials is that if people see something that I've done on TV, they're like, you're a millionaire, and it's just not the case, guys. The amount of pay that we get when it's on cable or when it's on the internet is drastically different from the old days when it was CBS, ABC, or NBC, right? So, in fact, I'm working right now in the W&Ws. It's the working and wages meetings, and all this is probably going to air afterwards. But guys, if you're in the union, it's really important to get involved with the union and get down there and just partake of some of these committees and these sort of it's not really a workshop. It's a time that we decide what we can work with the other side as far as getting our compensation straightened out. And it's open to every actor who's a paid up SAG-AFTRA member.
Right, and as a union member, you should be there at the meetings, making your voice known, letting your concerns, because I know people gripe about the union as though they're not looking out for me. Well, how can they look out for you if they don't hear you?
Right. And I think a lot of times people feel like, the union's there to take care of us, and it is there to take care of us, but we are the union. So we, in essence, have to take care of ourselves through this process. And it can be a crazy process because, for every decisions that's made, there are layers and layers of bureaucracy and legalities, and us approving things and the other side approving things. So there's a lot involved in the negotiation process. But if people don't show up and aren't involved, then you can't really complain when the contract isn't one that you love.
Right.
So I would encourage everybody to at least go down and check it out. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to have an opinion, really. Just go down and listen.
Yeah.
And right now they're going through the end of October, and the meetings are set up. There's a schedule, and you can...
I'll put a link below the video.
That'd be great. That'd be great. Yeah. And even if it's the last meeting that you can attend, show up so that the next go-round you have more of an idea of what's going on. And I tell you guys, it's a great way to develop relationships with other working actors and other people who are maybe a bit ahead of you or a bit behind you. And there's some amazing people that show up at these meetings, but they're strictly confidential. So I can't tell you what goes on. You just have to come down and see what goes on, right? So hopefully some of you will get down there and become more involved. And over the year, you can become involved with the conservatory, the foundation, MOVE, member education.
Now the conservatory has a ton of stuff.
Conservatory, I'm just so happy and proud of our conservatory committee. I'm the co-chair with Jane Austen, and I'm so happy and proud of our whole committee. We've put together an amazing array of commercial classes, TV and film classes. We're branching out into other areas, stunts, dancing, singing, some of the new motion capture, that kind of thing. So
if you're part of SAG, you can go to these for...
Yeah, it's a $45 yearly administration fee.
And that's it.
And you can sign up for the classes. And the other bonus is the AFI films, not the bigger graduate films, but all the films leading up to the graduate films, they cast exclusively from the SAG-AFTRA Conservatory, unless they have some really special need, like somebody who speaks Native American dialogue and is an actual Native American. And if that person is not in the conservatory,
Right.
that person is the one in the conservatory, they're doing it.
Yeah.
But if that person is not in the conservatory, then they can reach out. But I've done some amazing films, and I've kept up with these directors, and I think there was one that I ended up working for, and I got paid a decent amount of money. It was kind of fun to watch that director grow, and then work with that director later on.
Yeah, that's cool.
So it's good.
Yeah.
And guys, you're paying your dues. Literally, you're paying your dues out of your wallet. If you don't get the maximum amount that you can get from paying those dues, I would say you're kind of missing out.
Yeah, it's there for you.
There's so many opportunities. There's so much going on down at 5757.
And you can't take one class for $50. So $45 a year.
A year.
All the classes you're in.
And I'll talk a little bit about just one section, our commercial section. That Sean Sharma, I was head of it before, but it was a bit much for me. I passed it off to Sean Sharma, and he has put together such a great program. It's all of the session directors, not all, but a lot of the really big session directors that are casting all week. So you'll go down and you'll learn from the horse's mouth from these session directors, and then literally a week later you might be in the room with them. Wow. Right? And so for me, that's a comfort level, and that's a feeling of getting to know some of these people that are actively working all the time. I don't think there's any other place around where you can get that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's a really, really great program. And my big 5-year plan dream is for George Clooney or Brad Pitt or Angelina Jolie, one of you guys with tons and tons of dough to write a big check so that we can have a conservatory building and have a true conservatory where we train actors, and it is the apprenticeship arm of the union. Because I know when I first stepped on a set, it was learn by mistake or learn by example. And, a lot of times it's tough for people to let you learn by example because they're busy with their own thing. So I think, if you can step on a set after having been trained exactly what to do when you're on that set, or if you know exactly how to set up your own voiceover equipment at home for your own voiceover submissions, I think that's a bonus. And I'm hoping that we'll get that established, in the next decade or so before I croak.
You're going to be around for a long time.
Well,
I've heard stories
your
about
mouth
you.
to God's ears.
I've heard stories about you. You're just not planning on leaving. You're going to stick around.
I try to be resilient.
So, but I always tell people, like, the more equipped, the more prepared you are when you walk on set. People remember stuff like that. They remember if you show up on set and you were nothing but a pain in the butt the entire time, and they remember if you came on set and they didn't have to tell you anything twice.
Exactly.
And they remember
when you can save them time, when you can bring more to the table than they expect of you, that's when you get hired again and again and again.
Exactly.
And believe me, both of those thoughts are passed around. You're either the guy that they had to hire, or they're the guy you get to hire.
Right.
Which is really, really important. And preparation is 9/10 of it.
Right.
I'm going to do a little plug. I'm doing Death of a Salesman in April.
Yay.
I'm very excited. We got the rights. We don't have the theater yet. We're having big meetings. Get to play Willie Loman, a classic theatrical character, and it starts in April, and I've started my process already.
Yeah.
And I will work on this so that when the time for production hits, I'm going to hit the ground running. Yeah, and there's nothing, I think, more exciting for me as an actor than to be fully, completely, and totally prepared in an audition situation or in a work situation. I study with John Lacey. He's got the Lacey group that meets at Argentum on Tuesday nights. And their thing, Meisner says never come into a scene empty. This group has taken that to a slightly different interpretation, and they say come in fully loaded. When you're coming into a scene, you're fully loaded with everything you need to create that reality. Acting is doing and being real. And I think, continual study, continual preparation, that's what I'm all about. I'll be in class until I keep bringing this up until I'm pushing up the daisies.
Well, I guess another 40, 50 years, huh?
That's from your mouth to God's ears. I love that. I love that.
So yeah, I'm a big believer in that. You know,
Yeah.
I think that, you know, before I used to think that actors were professional liars, and then once I started working with actors and once I started understanding, I realized that actors are the most honest
Professional truth tellers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, you know, a
Yeah.
good actor you know, knows how to find that truth and be prepared. And, you know, I hear people all the time. They'll come in. I do a lot of self-tapes and doing one later today. Mm-hmm. And, you know, people will come in and they're like, oh, I don't have to be off book. And I'm like, well, no, you don't have to be.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. For me, here's what happens with me, Peggy. I have more spontaneous development in my characters and in what I'm doing when these lines are tattooed in my brain.
Exactly. So you're not having to think about that.
Exactly.
Then you can kind of think about the character.
There's room to play. I give the analogy of a musician. If I'm a musician and you ask me to play a song, if I don't know the notes of that song really, really well, I'm going to suck. Yeah. I'm not going to be able to pull that song off. If I know them well enough to play the song will be very pedestrian and it'll be okay. But if I know those notes and the beats and everything behind that music
then you can put your
so
heart into
well, then I can riff and play and take it to just almost outside of that box.
Exactly.
So I write my lines down 100 times. Yeah. I do the Anthony.
Is that how
Anthony
you learn
Hopkins
lines?
and this is what I've started doing lately. Every line I write on an index card in a different color because my brain just works that way. And when I see this image, the line comes to me, and the line will be tattooed in my brain after I do it enough times. And then I get to go to the experience behind the line, right? But Meryl Streep and Anthony Hopkins both, that's what they tout. They read their scripts 200 times. They write it 100 times. And I figure they're doing okay.
They're doing all right.
Right?
They're doing all right.
Why am I not going to do that if I have the capability of doing it?
Exactly.
Acting teacher of mine years ago said, the work begins when boredom sets in. So when you're bored with your lines, when you know them so well you're bored with them, then you get to play with them. Yeah, then you get to have a good time. Yeah. And it's true of anything when you think about it. Anything that you've ever done in your life, you were horrible at it first and you failed. Right?
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I wore diapers when I was a baby.
I think I did.
Right?
I'm pretty sure.
I staggered around and got up and I walked like a drunk when I was 2 years old. Right? And then eventually I started walking really well, and then I started running really well. And then came the bicycle. And I'm like, I don't know how to do this. Then came driving. And I think everything that you do, failure is a necessity. Yet in this art, people get up and they apologize for not, knowing their lines. They apologize when they drop something. And you have to fail. You have to fail over and over and over again until you eventually succeed. And then when you succeed, it's because that failure over and over again prepared you to do it in the proper way. Yeah. I'm starting to do some cooking now, and oh boy, that kitchen's a mess. It's a learning problem, a work in progress. That's right? Funny. But I fully expect, and my daughter, she bakes like a maniac, and believe me, she burnt a few cakes, and a few cakes fell. Yeah. And now she's an ace at it. I think she's the one that inspired me to get into the kitchen.
Decided to do that.
Isn't it funny how your kids start inspiring you?
They do. They do.
That's I never and I would scoff at my parents when they're like, just you wait when you're a parent, and I'm like, blow it out your whatever. And now I get it. I get that thing of being inspired by your kids and allowing your kids to teach you in a way. Yeah. We're all in this together. We're all learning.
All trying to figure it out. I've always been under the parenting style of telling my kids when I screw up that I'm sorry. And telling my kids that I don't know, but I'll find out.
I used to let mine put me in timeout.
There you go.
like if I maybe yelled inappropriately or I didn't put my dish in after I told them to put their dish in, I'd say, all right, you can put me, and they got the biggest kick out of that. Daddy, you're in timeout for 5 minutes, and I would go sit on the floor where I would put my kids in timeout. They just thought that was the best thing ever.
But that taught them as well, because instead of taking the power away from them, you gave the power to them to learn.
We all deserve to be in timeout.
We all screw up, and then that's exactly what you were saying with this. Everybody screws up, and when you embrace that, instead of feeling like letting it devastate you and I'm worthless. It's not that you're worthless. You just screwed up.
Yeah,
that's literally it.
It's
screwed
done.
Up.
Like if every baseball player that swung at a baseball
pitched
a fit and threw the bat down and stomped their feet, the game would never be over. Right. You missed the pitch, you get right back in there and you swing again. Yeah. And so I think we can apply all of this stuff to our lives, but it can also be applied to our careers.
Yeah.
And sometimes on the set, these brilliant mistakes happen that create iconic moments.
It's true.
I study also over at Ruskin, and one of the teachers there, I can't remember who said it, but that we were talking about that very thing, about mistakes. And in Taxi Driver, right? It wasn't Taxi Driver. What was that film with Dustin Hoffman and I'm having a moment now. John Voight, Dustin Hoffman and John Voight. Oh my God, it's an amazing film. It's an amazing film. In any event, they're shooting this scene, right? And the PA or whatever is supposed to stop traffic, right? And Dustin Hoffman and John Voight are walking across traffic, and this taxi cab almost hits Dustin Hoffman, and he slams, sorry, I messed up your sound. He slams his hand down on the cab and goes, "What are you doing? We're walking here," right? He stayed in character, and that made it into the movie.
Yeah.
That made it into the movie. If he had blown his character and said, "We're shooting a movie here," it never would have happened.
Right.
And there are several instances. You guys can Google all this stuff. There's several instances in movies and TV shows where the mistake
turned out to be the biggest,
became the kernel of the scene or the golden moment that happened. So, I'm a big believer in not editing, not stopping, not making myself apologize for anything that I do on set or, when the camera's rolling, because it can be gold.
It can be gold.
Even me forgetting the name of that movie will be gold, because you'll be able to put it up there.
I'll be able to put it up there.
I can't believe I can't remember that. I got to go on IMDb Pro now and figure it out. Let's see. We're going to find it.
Hold on.
We're
going to break for a quick Googling experience. No, but, when I met you, you're very recognizable. I was like, I don't know who he is, but I know.
That's
I've
what my
seen
parole
him
officer says. I'm very recognizable.
Very recognizable. But, and that's the thing. There's so many people that work so hard, and there's, if you just allow yourself to talk to people and go to classes, you end up meeting amazing people.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Merrick, in fact, earlier today he met with somebody that he met in a class. They run lines together, they work together, they're friends.
Yeah.
And that's what should be, we should help each other instead of getting this crazy attitude.
We're all in this together.
We're all in this together, and when you work together, and of course,
not to be braggadocious, right? But thousands and thousands of people have touched this face and put makeup on this face over the last 35 years, right? I have met thousands of people in this industry, and I cannot do this alone. None of you out there can do this alone. It requires other people. It requires relationships. The thing that I would tell my 23-year-old self, and all you 23-year-olds out there, please listen, is nurture and grow every relationship you possibly can. In a sincere way, not in a, what can you do for me kind of way.
What can I do for you?
I don't like the N word. I don't like networking.
Yeah.
Because networking implies, what can you do for me? What can you do for me? What can you do for me? Instead of, how can I help you?
How can I help you?
And how can we work together? And how can we creatively collaborate on something that is mutually beneficial? And so that's why I'm bigger on the idea of building and growing relationships.
I'm huge on that. We live in a place where who you know is everything.
Yeah.
Who you know is everything. If you watch my vlogs, you hear me say it all the time. Who you know is everything. So you need to be that person that's always out there. How can I help you? You know what? I got a couple hours. You want me to help you with that? You know?
Yes.
When you become that person,
I find the more I give, the more I get.
Exactly.
The more I give, the more I get.
Exactly.
And I don't give to get.
No.
It is just a natural thing that happens. And it feels good.
Yeah.
It feels good when you're giving, and this return happens.
Yeah.
That sometimes it happens in the weirdest ways, and you just can't predict
You're like,
it. And sometimes the thing
Didn't
you
see
want to
that
predict
coming.
just doesn't happen
Yeah.
at all. You know, and that's what I love about this business. It's constant learning. It's always spontaneous and different and exciting. You never know who you're going to be working with. You never know where you're going to be working. It's just really, I'm a happy camper. I always say I'm happy with my career, but I'm never satisfied.
Exactly. You always want to grow.
When you get an Academy Award, you want the second Academy Award.
Exactly.
You know, when you've worked a lot in your 20s, you want to work a lot in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. You know, you want to keep working.
Yeah.
You know, I heard an NPR interview with this cat that is, I wish I could remember his name. He's working right now in a show in Chicago, 95 years old.
Wow.
95 years old, and he's up on the boards and he's selling it out. And the interviewer said, well, what's your next project? He goes, I don't know. I'm going to be around. And it's kind of tough to get people to take a chance on somebody who's 96 years old.
And may or may not be
and
there.
may not be there the next day, right? So, I think that's the kind of life I want to live. I want to always be ready, always be excited to, get up and pursue things, learn things. It's really great.
People that get to do what they're passionate about can't imagine not doing it. Like for me, I've had a camera in my hand since I was 9. I can't imagine somebody saying you can no longer be a photographer.
Right. And when you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life.
No, it's not work. I mean, I have to do things that I don't enjoy sometimes, like paperwork and spreadsheets and taxes. But the thing is I get to meet amazing people. I get to hang out with amazing people. I get to do things that, and be a part of things every single day. Like I see people that literally hate getting up in the morning and going to their job, and I can't imagine that.
I can't imagine that.
My thought is always quit and do what you love, because I feel like everybody should.
Yeah.
But we're those people. We're those people that we're like, okay, well, this is what we're good at. It. This is what we're good at.
The crazy thing about being an actor is, you whatever job you're doing, if you're not in front of the camera, if you're not on stage, you can be an actor, right? I loved waiting tables. A lot of actors hate that. I loved it because I would go in and I'd be the grumpy waiter. I would purposefully be grumpy, and I'd get better tips. I'd get better tips when I was a grumpy waiter than when I was the kind, nice, the waiter that kind of sits down and says, "Hi, what can I get you today?" and they're just a little too gracious, a little too overbearing.
Yeah.
I would be that rude waiter, and I'd get amazing tips. So I started being the rude waiter more and more, right? But we get to play. It literally is a play that we get to do all the time.
Well, because
not
only can you work on a character, but you can see how other people react to that character.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an honest
and behavior.
reaction.
I love behavior.
You can see their behavior, and you can so that's how someone would react when somebody did that. So when you're in a scene and somebody does that, here's the honest reaction, the surprise reaction.
And there are things that we do in life that we would never do on camera, but why not? Why don't we? Because we realize the camera's there.
Right.
And it forces us to be subdued.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've been doing lately is I've been really examining human behavior, both as a writer and director and an actor. You got to examine all the human behavior around. I was in Portos the other day. It's a great Cuban restaurant in Burbank. If you haven't gone, go. It's delicious Cuban food, very reasonable, and always packed. And the reason that I go there is for the food and to watch the people. Right? And I noticed this great little bit of human behavior at a table just across from me. It was two middle-aged women, and she got the food brought to her and set down on her plate, and she took her straw and put her thumb over the straw and then pulled the water out and dropped the water in her hand and then washed her hands under the table. And then she proceeded to eat. And I thought, I got to perform that as an actor, or I got to write it in a movie. Because I'd never seen that behavior before. That was very, very cool and funny.
Yeah.
Right?
That would be funny to watch somebody do that, because you're like, okay, it's a borderline. That's
in there. It's like OPC, right? Or what is it?
A little OCD there.
OCD. OPC came up with it.
So it's all right. I'm dyslexic, so I can speak that language too. It sounded fine.
We understand each other. Nobody else gets
sorry,
it. Sorry,
you guys, but we have our own language here.
Oh my goodness.
That's so funny. But yeah, I love people watching, and it's in the studio. It's funny because people do react different. An actor, yes, the camera's there, but they're doing this. When they're in my studio, it's right there. So it gets intense really quick.
Yeah.
And some people, even professional actors.
Tell me if I'm right or wrong. But this is what I tell my students at SC and other places that I teach. First of all, have a professional photographer do your headshots. Don't get your friend to do them. And no matter how great your friend is, there's a reason why professionals are professionals. And I would say go on a website, and if you recognize some of the people, if it's been recommended by an agent, then they're a pretty safe bet to use as a photographer. But by all means, before the shoot, go out with a friend and have a friend shoot you and get used to it and have fun with the still photography, so that when they show up to see you, they've had that experience and they can be loose and they can have fun, and it's not this pressurized environment.
And the other thing that's important is to know what you want.
Yeah.
I always give my clients a questionnaire, because people used to come into my studio and say, I want 2 looks. And I'm like, okay, what
looks?
What 2 looks?
What looks do your agent want?
Well, what do you, look at me, what do you think I could do? And I'm like, I've known you for 30 seconds. You should know. So then I started, giving a questionnaire out. And
that's good.
And it makes people sit down and think, what roles am I a fit for? What do I want to? And talk to your agent, because your agent has in mind what they want. And when we do an amazing session and you show your agent and they don't see that one thing they want, they're going to say, I hate all those.
Yeah.
And it's not that they were all bad. It was that they didn't get what they wanted.
Exactly.
So it's,
And guys, I think it's super, super important to line up how you see yourself in the world as a performer. You might be completely different as a performer than you are as a person. So this isn't like a personal affront. But if your agent sees you as the grumpy boss or the plain Jane girl next door. So one of the really important things, you guys, to do after you've done your research and gotten recommendations about a photographer is you got to make sure that your agent and casting directors and anybody that might work with you in a film or TV show or commercial, you're lined up with the way that they see you. You may see yourself as the stoic businessman, and your agent may see you as the get off my lawn grumpy grandpa, right? And if they're sending you out for that and you don't see yourself as that and others don't see you as that, then there's that disconnect and you're not going to book anything. So it's important to find out exactly what your type is, find out exactly what you're going to be auditioning for, and then create that headshot that represents that.
That may be the most brilliant advice anybody's ever said. Yeah. Because, and you can't take it personal. If your agent sees you as a grumpy old man and you're like, I'm not a grumpy old man, then that's nothing to do with you.
I'm going to make a lot of money as a grumpy old grandpa. And after I make all that money as the grumpy old grandpa, then I can spend that money to become the stoic businessman, right? But I think a lot of times actors shoot themselves in the foot because they want to play beyond their type. They want to take on this challenge of playing who they are not naturally.
Right.
Sean Sharma, one of my favorite people in the world. I mentioned him earlier. He's a mentor of mine. I'm a mentor of his. He's a lot younger, so I guess I'm the older mentor. But he inspires me. And in his classes, he teaches you are enough. You are enough just exactly as you are. People see other people and compare themselves and try to become something that they're not.
Right.
Right? If here's a tip that I give all actors, no matter where you're at in your career. Find yourself out there. Find yourself in the roles that you see on television. If you got an extra 40, 50 pounds that you're carrying around, find that 40, 50 pound overweight character. I promise you will find them all.
Yeah.
You will find them all. It's not to say if you want to, drop some weight and get slimmed down, great. Do that in the process, but that doesn't mean you can't book something right now. Right now.
People tell me all the time, oh, I'm going to lose 20 pounds and I'm going to get headshots. Why? Get headshots, book work, get paid, come get new headshots.
Exactly. Because we never know, guys. Yeah. We're in the present moment. We never know what's going to change in the future. Yeah. And, the people that are constantly waiting for it to happen, you're just going to be waiting. Yeah. Now, the flip side of that, too, is I tell especially younger actors out there, live your life. Get married, have kids, have a family, do all that stuff. Don't put it off till the time you feel like you've reached the pinnacle of success and now you can grant yourself this thing that everybody gets, because babies bring gifts, y'all. My 2 best years as an actor happened the year my daughter was born and the year my son was born. And I see, at my age, at my grumpy grandpa age, I see lots and lots of actors who have struggled with this, and they've worked and worked and worked and worked, and some of them now are reaching their success level that they wanted to have, but they don't have everything around them that they want. Now, I'm not saying that every one of you out there is going to want to have kids and families and all that jazz, but if that is something that you want to do, or if you want to travel, carve time out of your year to travel. Don't say, I'm going to wait until I get that big job and then I'm going to travel. Travel first. Live a life. Be as well-rounded and as big and brilliant as you can be. I promise that's going to help your career. It will. Casting directors don't want to hear you talking about the last acting job you had. They want to hear about your adventures. They want to hear about your hobbies. They want to hear about your family life. They want to hear about the triumphs just in life that you've achieved. It has nothing to do with acting.
Kevin, that's literally you've just given me some golden nuggets today, because that's a tough decision to make, because I can't really take time off to go travel, because what if I miss an audition? And then you sit at home all week and you don't have any auditions, and you didn't go do your traveling. That's
the Murphy's Law of acting.
Yeah, I know. The second I'm gonna
book that trip to Hawaii, my vacation to Hawaii, with non-refundable tickets, and on that very same day, I'm gonna book a commercial that may or may not be huge and pay for that trip to Hawaii. So then I gotta figure it out. Or you don't work for months and months and months, and then all of a sudden you got a potential top show guest star and a huge national commercial and a great independent film, all shooting in the same week.
Oh yeah.
And you got to kind of figure it out, right?
Every time we flew into Chicago to go to Notre Dame to Merrick's son's graduation, and for his master's, listen to him read his thesis and all this, and just
what happened.
Yep. And Merrick's like, no, I'm not going to miss my son's, and his agent's like, you are not going to miss this. So we went to his reading, and I drove back into Chicago, took him at a red eye, and he got there to call time at 6 a.m. And
that's exciting stuff. I love when stuff like that happens.
And I went back and had lunch with his son and hung out and took my initial flight home.
I love our first world problems, but they're there. They're there.
It is, but you're right. It is. But that's good advice. Don't stop your life.
Don't stop.
Live your life, because then you're more rounded. You have more experiences. You have more things to offer, because especially actors, the more experiences you have, the more you have to offer.
The more you can play.
The more
right?
This was awesome. Kevin, you're going to come back on.
I would love to. Yeah, I would love to. Maybe we can set up different topics to talk about. I'm happy to do that. And
I know
thank you so much.
Everyone's going to love this.
Well, Again, the pressure. Oh my God, she's pressuring me at the end.
I know. I'm just so excited. Oh. What they don't know is how many months have we been trying to do this.
Oh yeah. It's always the schedule thing. When are we going to do lunch, right? But now that we've broken the ice, exactly. I think it's a great thing, and I would love to come back anytime you want to.
And then we can talk about theater. We can talk about all these things coming up.
I love that.
Thanks so much.
I'll come back in March and sell a lot of tickets to Death of a Salesman in April. Who knows where? Who knows when? More will be revealed.
Well, thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Everybody that's watching this on Facebook, make sure that you like my page. Go over to YouTube and follow me, subscribe, click the little bell so you don't miss any of my YouTube
Lots of great videos she already has.
There you go. Go back and look at some of the old ones.
You on Insta? You on the Instagram?
Of course I'm on Instagram. I'm on Instagram. You guys got to follow me everywhere. And I'm going to have all your links. So I'm going to have people stalk the heck out of you.
I love that. I love being stalked.
You're fun to stalk. I've been stalking you for a while. Most importantly, have an amazing week, and we'll see you next week. Well, I'll see you next week. They're going to have to stalk you on social media.
That's all good. I'm there, and I'm ready to be stalked.
Kevin, thanks again.
Thank you.
It was really fun.
Thank you so much.
Yay.
Bye, y'all.
I think we did it.
I think we did.
All right.